Blood of Manetheren. A Quiet Life in the Two Rivers. Good evening and welcome to our Sleep to Lore series. Tonight we journey to a quiet and forgotten corner of a much larger world. We are visiting a place known as the Two Rivers, a small, isolated land that has remained unchanged for 1,000 years, a land of sheepherders and farmers, of deep woods and simple lives. It is a place that exists long before the great events that would later shape its destiny. If you enjoy these stories and would like to support the channel, you can subscribe or leave a comment below. It helps us greatly. Before we begin, I have a simple question for you to think on. What is your favorite small, cozy town from a book or a movie, and what makes it feel so peaceful to you? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. And now, settle in, close your eyes, and let us travel to the land nestled between the two great rivers. Chapter 1. The Land Between Two Rivers. Our story begins not with a person, but with the land itself. To understand the people of the two rivers, you must first understand the shape of their world, a world defined and cradled by water and wood. Imagine a vast, sprawling forest, a great green ocean of trees stretching farther than the eye can see. This is the wild heart of the world, ancient and untamed. But within this wilderness there is a pocket of safety, a region carved out and protected by two immense, slow-moving bodies of water. These are the two rivers that give the land its name. To the north flows the Tarn. It is not a mighty, rushing river. It is old, wide, and placid. Its waters are often murky, the colour of weak tea, filled with the rich soil of the lands it passes through. Its banks are soft and lined with tall reeds that rustle and whisper in the slightest breeze. The Tarn moves with a purpose so slow it is almost imperceptible, a sleepy guardian that marks the northern boundary of this small world. For the people who live here, the Tarn is the edge of the map. Beyond it lies the unknown, the outside world that they hear about only in the tales of merchants and the songs of travelling gleemen. The river is a barrier not of stone or steel, but of simple distance and inconvenience. It discourages casual visitors and reinforces a sense of separation that the people have come to cherish, even if they do not consciously think of it. The sound of the Tarn is a constant, low murmur, a background noise so familiar that it is not truly heard, but is felt as a part of the profound peace of the region. To the south, much farther away and seen by very few, flows the White River. It is a different beast entirely. The White River, or Manetheren, as it is called in the old tongue, that no one here speaks anymore, is younger, faster, and clearer. Its waters run deep and strong over a bed of smooth stones, and its path is more direct, more forceful. While the Tarn meanders like a sleepy serpent, the White River cuts a determined line across the landscape. For the people of the two rivers, the White River is more of a legend than a landmark. It is the southern wall of their world, a line drawn by nature that is so remote, few have ever felt the need to travel to its banks. It is bordered by treacherous swamps and thick, impassable forests. It is the final, definitive statement that this land between the waters is its own place, set apart and secure. Between these two great liquid boundaries lies the land itself. It is a place of gentle, rolling hills, of wide open pastures for sheep, of dense woodlands, and of fertile fields for crops. The air here feels different, heavy with the moisture from the rivers and the rich scent of damp earth and growing things. It is a green and gentle land, a patch of enduring tranquility in a world that has largely forgotten it exists. This isolation is the single most important fact of life here. It has shaped the people, their customs, their way of thinking, and their very character. They are a people who have learned to rely on themselves for everything, because for centuries there has been no one else to rely on. Their world is small, but it is complete. It has everything they need, and they have little desire for anything more. The great events of the world, the rise and fall of kings and queens, the wars and plagues that sweep across other lands, are nothing more than distant rumors here. Stories that are listened to with mild curiosity before being dismissed as having no bearing on the important matters of life, like mending a fence or bringing in the harvest before the rain. The only consistent link to this outside world, the single thread connecting the two rivers to the larger tapestry, is the TWOT ferry. At the northernmost point of the region, where the woods are thinnest, a thick, strong rope of oiled hemp is stretched from one bank of the TWOT River to the other. Tied to this rope is a large, flat-bottomed ferryboat, a barge made of heavy, dark wood that has been patched and repaired for generations. This is the TWOT ferry, and it is operated by a single family, a duty passed down from father to son for time out of mind. The ferryman is a quiet, watchful man. He has to be. He is the gatekeeper of their world. He spends his days in a small, sturdy hut near the riverbank, waiting for the sound of the great iron bell that signals a traveller wishes to cross. A crossing is a slow and deliberate affair. The ferryman poles the barge away from the dock, and the current of the sleepy Taran catches it, pulling it slowly across the water. The guide rope groans and creaks as it slides through its fittings on the boat. The journey from one side to the other takes a long time, giving the ferryman ample opportunity to study anyone who comes to his land. He observes the way they dress, the way they speak, the goods they carry in their wagons. He is the first line of defense, though he would never think of it in such dramatic terms. He is simply doing his job. Most of the traffic is predictable. Once or twice a season, a merchant's wagon will arrive, heavy with goods that cannot be produced in the two rivers. These wagons bring salt, which is essential for preserving meat through the winter. They bring tools of iron and steel that are finer than what the local blacksmith can make, things like needles and scissors and fine knives. They bring bolts of brightly coloured cloth, silks and velvets that are an unimaginable luxury for the practical, wool-wearing folk of the region. The arrival of a merchant is a major event. The news spreads from the ferry down to the villages, and people gather to see what wonders the outside world has to offer this time. But even the merchants are treated with a degree of caution. They are outsiders, and outsiders are, by their very nature, not to be trusted completely. Besides the merchants, the only other regular visitors are the tinkers, or the travelling people, as they prefer to be called. They arrive every spring in their brightly painted wagons, their coming heralded by the sound of music and laughter. They bring news and entertainment, mending pots and pans and sharpening knives in exchange for food and a place to camp. They are a welcome sight, a splash of colour and excitement in the predictable rhythm of the year. But even they are kept at a slight distance. They are not of the two rivers, and when their work is done, they are expected to leave, to continue their endless journey on the roads of the world. And that is all. A handful of merchants a year, a single caravan of tinkers, perhaps a tax collector from the distant Queen's capital every few years, a man who is treated with polite disdain and sent on his way as quickly as possible. This is the extent of their contact with the world beyond the TWOT. This profound isolation has bred a deep-seated stubbornness and independence in the people. They are suspicious of new things and new ideas, preferring the old ways that have served their ancestors for 1,000 years. Why change what is not broken? Their lives are hard, yes, filled with the endless labour of farming and shepherding, but they are also good. They have food in their bellies, wool on their backs, and a roof over their heads. They are safe. And in a world of uncertainty, safety is the greatest treasure of all. The two rivers that surround them are more than just geographical features. They are the walls of a fortress of peace and quiet that has stood unbreached for a millennium. Within this protected land, life is centered around 4 villages, each with its own distinct character, yet all bound together by a shared culture and a common blood. They are like 4 siblings, different in temperament but unmistakably part of the same family. Let us take a tour of these places to see how life is lived in the heart of the 2 rivers. We begin in Emansfield, for it is the heart of the region. It is not the largest of the villages nor the oldest, but it is the center of life, the place where people from all corners of the land gather for festivals and market days. The village is built around the green, a wide, open expanse of closely cropped grass that serves as the town square, the meeting place, and the playground for the village children. In the center of the green stands a well, its stone walls worn smooth by generations of hands, its wooden bucket and rope a constant source of fresh, cool water. A few ancient oak trees dot the green, their massive branches providing shade from the hot summer sun. It is under these oaks that the village council meets, and it is in their shade that old men gather to smoke their pipes and trade stories. The buildings of Emansfield are made to last. They are constructed from fieldstone, pulled from the earth, and thick, dark timbers cut from the surrounding forests. The roofs are made of grey slate, angled steeply to shed the heavy winter snows. Each house has a small garden, neatly fenced, where vegetables and herbs are grown, and bright flowers are cultivated in window boxes, adding splashes of red and yellow and blue to the otherwise earthy tones of the village. The most important building in Emansfield, the true centre of its social life, is the Winespring Inn. It is a large, 2-story structure with a welcoming porch and a sign depicting a bubbling spring. The inn is owned and operated by the Alvear family, and the current innkeeper, Bran Alvear, also serves as the mayor of the village. He is a sturdy, good-natured man with a warm smile and a keen sense of fairness. The Winespring is more than just a place to get a meal or a mug of ale. It is the village living room. On any given evening, its common room is filled with farmers and shepherds, relaxing after a long day's work. The air is thick with the smell of roasting meat, fresh-baked bread, wood smoke from the massive hearth, and the sweet, earthy scent of taba, the local pipeweed. The sound of conversation is a low, pleasant hum, punctuated by laughter or the occasional song. It is here that news is shared, gossip is traded, and bargains are made. It is a place of warmth and community, a bulwark against the darkness and the cold of the night. Not far from the inn stands the smithy, the domain of Harald Luhan, the village blacksmith. The smithy is a constant source of sound and activity. The rhythmic clang of Master Luhan's hammer on his anvil is one of the defining sounds of Mansfield, a steady, reassuring beat that can be heard from dawn until dusk. The smithy itself is a dark, open-fronted building, its walls stained with soot. The air inside is always hot, even in winter, filled with the sharp smell of burning coal and hot metal. Master Luhan is a man of immense strength, his arms thick with muscle from a lifetime of swinging his hammer. He is a master of his craft, able to create anything the village needs, from iron and steel. He forges plowshares to turn the soil, horseshoes for the farmer's stock, hinges and latches for their doors, and nails to hold their houses together. His work is essential, the iron backbone of the community. He is a quiet, focused man, content in his work, a pillar of the village as solid as the anvil he works upon. Other vital places of commerce and life are scattered around the green. There is the miller, whose water wheel on the nearby Winespring water turns constantly, grinding the farmer's grain into flour. There is the merchant's shop, a place filled with all the goods from the outside world, a treasure trove of small, necessary luxuries. And there are the homes of the villagers, each one a small kingdom, a private space of family and rest. Life in Aemonsfield is ordered and predictable. The rooster's crow at dawn signals the start of the workday. The men go to their fields or their workshops, the women to their gardens, their looms, or their kitchens. The day is filled with hard, honest work. As evening falls, the families gather for their supper, and then, perhaps, a visit to the Winespring Inn, or a quiet evening by their own hearth. It is a simple life, a good life, a life that has remained unchanged for as long as anyone can remember. If we travel north from Aemonsfield following a dirt track that winds through the woods, we will eventually come to the village of Watch Hill. As its name suggests, the village is situated on a high, rolling hill that offers a commanding view of the surrounding countryside. From the top of Watch Hill, you can see for miles in every direction. You can see the dark line of the Taryn River to the north, the endless green of the Westwood to the west, and the distant, hazy peaks of the mountains of mist far to the east. The people of Watch Hill are a bit different from the folk of Aemonsfield. They are quieter, more reserved, and there is a watchfulness about them that is hard to define. They are farmers and shepherds, just like their neighbours to the south, but they carry an unspoken responsibility. They are the guardians of the northern border. They keep an eye on the Taryn and the ferry, on the lookout for anything unusual. They do not know why they do this. It is simply a tradition, a duty that has been passed down through the generations. The men of Watch Hill spend a little more time practicing with the longbow than men from the other villages. Their eyes are a little sharper, their gazes a little more penetrating. The village itself is built for defence, though no one would ever say so. The houses are clustered tightly together on the crest of the hill, their stone walls thick and their windows small. The village feels solid, rooted, a place that could withstand a storm. Life here is much the same as in Aemonsfield, but with a subtle undercurrent of vigilance. When men gather at the end of the day, their conversation might turn to the weather or the price of wool, but their eyes will often drift northward, scanning the horizon out of a habit so old it has become instinct. They are a people living on the edge of their small world, and they have never forgotten it. This quiet, constant state of alertness has made them patient and observant. They are slow to speak, but quick to notice. This has earned them a reputation for being dour or unfriendly among the other villages, but it is not unfriendliness, it is simply a deep, ingrained seriousness, a consequence of living on the watchtower of their land. To the west of Aemonsfield, in a land of wide, open pastures and gently sloping hills, lies Devonride. This is the heart of the sheep-herding country, and the air here is filled with the sound of bleating sheep and the occasional sharp bark of a shepherd's dog. The landscape around Devonride is more open than the rest of the two rivers, with fewer trees and more grassland. The hills are crisscrossed with low stone walls built by shepherds over centuries to contain their flocks. The people of Devonride are tied to their sheep. Their lives are governed by the needs of the flock, the lambing in the spring, the shearing in the summer, the moving of the sheep to sheltered pastures for the winter. They are known for producing the finest wool in the region, product so soft and strong that it is one of the few things from the two rivers that merchants from the outside world actively seek out. The villagers of Devonride are as sturdy and resilient as the sheep they tend. They are accustomed to solitude and long hours spent outdoors in all kinds of weather. The shepherds are quiet folk, with faces weathered by the sun and wind. They know the land intimately, every hill and valley, every stream and spring. They can read the sky and predict the weather with an accuracy that seems almost supernatural to the farmers in the other villages. Their lives are simpler, more solitary than those in Aemonsfield. Their village is smaller, a tight cluster of houses and barns, a place to gather for supplies and company before heading back out to the pastures. They are a people of the earth and the sky, their rhythms dictated by the seasons and the timeless cycle of birth and death that they witness every day in their flocks. Finally, at the very northern edge of the land, right on the banks of the slow-moving Tarren, is the village of Tarren Ferry. This is the smallest of the 4 villages, little more than a collection of houses, a small tavern, and the ferry landing itself. Life in Tarren Ferry is dominated by the river. The rhythm of the village is the rhythm of the ferry, the slow crossings back and forth, the arrival of the rare traveller. The people here are the most worldly of all the folk of the 2 rivers, though that is not saying much. They have more contact with outsiders than anyone else, and, as a result, they are a little less suspicious, a little more curious about the world beyond their borders. They are the first to hear news from the outside, and the last to see visitors leave. The village itself is a practical place. The houses are built on high ground to avoid the spring floods. There are docks for fishing boats and workshops for repairing the ferry and other river craft. The tavern is a rough and ready establishment, a place where travellers can get a hot meal and a bed for the night before continuing their journey. The people of Tarren Ferry are boatmen and fishermen, traders and craftsmen. They are practical, adaptable folk, shaped by the constant presence of the river and the trickle of traffic from the outside world. They serve as the gateway to the 2 rivers, the first friendly faces that a visitor sees, and the last wave goodbye. These 4 villages, Emansfield, Watch Hill, Devon Ride and Tarren Ferry, are the 4 corners of this small, forgotten world. They are different in their own ways, yet they are all undeniably of the 2 rivers. Their people are bound by shared blood, shared customs, and a shared love for the quiet, peaceful land that the 2 rivers have given them. Beyond the cleared fields and pastures of the villages lie the wilds. The great forests and hills that surround the settled areas are as much a part of the 2 rivers' identity as the villages themselves. These are not dark and terrifying woods of fairy tales. They are a source of life, a pantry, and a playground for the people who live here. The forests have names, a sign of the deep familiarity the people have with them. To the east of Emansfield lies the Waterwood, a damp, marshy forest that follows the course of the Winespring water. The trees here are mostly willows and alders, and the ground is covered in a thick carpet of moss and ferns. It is a place of shadows and secrets, where the light filters down through the leaves in shifting patterns. The people of Emansfield come here to gather herbs for the village wisdom, the local healer. They hunt for mushrooms in the autumn and fish for speckled trout in the clear, cold water of the stream. It is a quiet, contemplative place, filled with the sound of dripping water and buzzing insects. To the west is the Westwood, a much larger and older forest. The trees here are ancient oaks and leather leaves, their massive trunks like the pillars of a cathedral. The canopy is so thick that the forest floor is in a state of perpetual twilight. This is the primary hunting ground for the people of the 2 rivers. The men come here in small, quiet groups, moving through the undergrowth with a skill born of long practice. They hunt deer and boar and rabbits, providing meat for their families' tables. The Westwood is a place of respect. The hunters take only what they need, and they are careful not to disturb the ancient rhythms of the forest. They know the game trails and the watering holes, the places where the deer feed at dawn and where the boars sleep during the day. It is a place of skill and patience, a world away from the orderly fields of the village. Beyond the forests there are other, wilder places. To the east, rising up like a distant jagged wall, are the mountains of mist. These mountains are a constant presence on the horizon, their peaks often shrouded in clouds. They are a place of legend and mystery. No one from the 2 rivers ever goes to the mountains. They are seen as the edge of the world, a place of strange beasts and forgotten secrets. The old stories say that the mountains are haunted by the ghosts of a long-dead kingdom, and while most people laugh at such tales, no one is willing to put them to the test. The mountains serve as the great eastern wall of their world, a beautiful but forbidding barrier that reinforces their sense of isolation. To the south, near the unseen White River, are the Sand Hills. This is a strange, desolate region of barren, sandy hills where little grows. It is considered a bad luck place, an unnatural blight on the otherwise green and fertile land. The shepherds of Devon Ride are careful to keep their flocks away from the sand hills, and travellers on the rare journey south will make a wide detour to avoid them. Like the mountains, the sand hills are the subject of old, cautionary tales, stories of men who wandered in and were never seen again. These wild places, the forests, the mountains, and the hills, are not seen as enemies by the people of the two rivers. They are simply part of their world, the untamed half of their kingdom. They provide a stark contrast to the order and safety of the villages, a constant reminder of the raw, untamed nature that lies just beyond their doorstep. This duality shapes the people. They are civilized and orderly in their villages, but they possess a wild, untamed streak that comes from their close proximity to the forest. They are farmers, but they are also hunters. They are peaceful, but they are not soft. They are a people who understand the balance between the cultivated and the wild, because they live on the border between the two every day of their lives. And so our tour of the land between the two rivers is complete. It is a land of profound peace, a small, self-contained world that has been sheltered from the storms of history for 1,000 years. Its boundaries are the slow Terren and the swift White River. Its heart is the village of Emmonsfield, with its welcoming inn and its steady blacksmith. Its sentinels are the watchful folk of Watch Hill. Its wealth comes from the flocks of Devon Ride, and its door to the world is the lonely ferry at Tarren Ferry. It is a land of deep woods and rolling hills, of distant mountains and quiet streams. It is a good land, a safe land. And the people who live here, shaped by this very land, are a people of quiet strength and unshakable stubbornness. They do not know it, but they are the inheritors of a long-forgotten legacy, a legacy of courage and sacrifice that sleeps in their very blood. Their quiet life is the result of a great and terrible storm that broke upon their ancestors 1,000 years ago. They have forgotten the storm, but they live in the long, peaceful calm that has followed in its wake. They are content in their isolation, unaware that the world outside their river-bound sanctuary is stirring once more, and that the long peace of the two rivers is drawing to a close. But for now, all is quiet. All is well. The land sleeps and its people sleep with it, dreaming the simple dreams of a simple, peaceful life. Chapter 2. The Turning of the Seasons. Life in the two rivers is not measured by the proclamations of queens or the dates of distant battles. It is measured by the turning of the earth, by the slow and predictable dance of the seasons. For the people who live here, the year is a great wheel, and its turning dictates every aspect of their lives, from the work of their hands to the thoughts in their heads. There is a deep comfort in this rhythm, a sense of security that comes from knowing that spring will always follow winter, and that the harvest will always follow the summer sun. This cycle is the foundation of their world, an unchanging truth in a world they know little about. It is the steady heartbeat of the land. The year begins, as all things do, with a new beginning. It begins with spring. Spring in the two rivers does not arrive in a sudden burst of warmth and colour. It is a slow, shy, and often reluctant visitor. It begins not with a feeling, but with a sound. It is the sound of dripping water. After months of deep, frozen silence, the first sign of change is the gentle, persistent drip, drip, drip of melting snow from the eaves of the houses and the branches of the trees. It is a sound of release, the sound of winter's icy grip beginning to weaken. The air, for months sharp and brittle with cold, begins to soften. It carries a new scent, a rich, loamy smell of damp earth waking from its long sleep. The ice on the Winespring water and the larger streams begins to crack and groan, breaking into large glassy sheets that float downstream, a silent procession marking the retreat of the cold. The sun, which has been a distant, pale disk in the winter sky, seems to grow stronger each day. Its light has a new warmth, a new power, and it coaxes the first hints of green from the brown, muddy ground of the village green. The birds return, first a few hardy scouts, and then, as the days grow longer, a full chorus, filling the morning air with a sound that has been absent for too long. For the people of the Two Rivers, these are the true heralds of the new year, more meaningful than any date on a calendar. This slow thawing brings with it a feeling of restlessness, an eagerness to begin the work of the year. After being cooped up indoors for the long winter months, the men feel a pull to the fields. They gather in their barns and workshops, the air filled with the scent of oil and wood shavings. They inspect their ploughs, mending the wooden frames and checking the iron shares. They take the shares that are dull or broken to Master Luhan at the smithy, and the village once again fills with the cheerful, rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer. It is a sound of preparation, of a community getting ready for the hard work ahead. The women, too, are filled with this energy of renewal. They throw open the shutters of their homes, letting the fresh, cool spring air chase out the stale, smoky air of winter. Blankets, quilts and rugs are taken outside and hung over fences and clotheslines, where they are beaten with wicker paddles until clouds of dust fill the air. Every corner of every house is scrubbed and cleaned, a ritual of purification that mirrors the washing of the land by the melting snow. The first day of ploughing is a momentous occasion. The men lead their sturdy draft horses or oxen out to the fields, their breath misting in the cool morning air. The earth is soft and heavy, and the ploughshare makes a satisfying tearing sound as it cuts the first furrow. The work is back-breaking. It is a struggle between the man, the beast, and the stubborn earth. But it is a good struggle, a familiar one. The smell of the newly turned soil is the perfume of promise, the scent of future harvests and full larders. As the men work in the fields, the women begin to work in their kitchen gardens. They turn the soil with spades and hoes, their hands deep in the rich, dark earth. They plant the first hardy vegetables of the season, onions, lettuces and peas. They sow the herbs that will be used for cooking and for healing, the seeds, small and full of potential in their palms. The entire village seems to stir at once, a collective stretching of muscles after a long hibernation. But spring in the Two Rivers is not just about work. It is also about celebration. As the days grow warmer and the land grows greener, an excitement begins to build, a palpable buzz of anticipation that can be felt throughout the 4 villages. Everyone is looking forward to Beltane. Beltane is the great festival of spring, a day of feasting, dancing and games that marks the official end of winter and the true beginning of the new year. The preparations for Beltane begin weeks in advance and involve the entire community. The village green in Emmonsfield is meticulously cared for. The grass is scythed and any stray stones or weeds are removed. The young men, in a great show of strength and cooperation, go into the westwood to select and cut down a tall, straight sapling to serve as the Beltane pole. They carry it back to the village on their shoulders, singing and shouting, their progress followed by the admiring glances of the young women. The young women, for their part, spend their evenings weaving intricate garlands of the first spring flowers and long, brightly coloured ribbons to decorate the pole. Their fingers are nimble, their laughter frequent. It is a time of courtship and flirtation, of stolen glances and shy smiles. A new dress for the Beltane dancing is a matter of utmost importance, and the click-clack of looms can be heard from many houses as mothers and daughters work to have their new finery ready for the festival. The men practice for the archery competition, a contest of great prestige. They spend their evenings on the green, sending arrow after arrow into straw targets, the soft thud of the arrow hitting the mark, a common sound as dusk falls. The competition is fierce but friendly, a chance to show off a skill that every Two Rivers man prides himself on. Finally, the day of Beltane arrives. The air is filled with a sense of joy and release. From all over the region, from Watch Hill and Devon Ride and Tarren Ferry, people make their way to Emond's They come on foot, on horseback, or in wagons, their faces bright with anticipation. The village green is transformed. The Beltane pole stands tall in the centre, a riot of colour with its flowers and fluttering ribbons. Long tables are set up, groaning under the weight of food and drink. There are roasted chickens and legs of lamb, great wheels of cheese, baskets of fresh baked bread, and pies of every description. Barrels of ale and cider have been tapped, their contents flowing freely. The day is filled with games and contests. There are foot races for the children, a stone-throwing competition for the strongest men, and of course, the great archery tournament. But the true heart of Beltane begins as the sun sets. Great bonfires are lit at the edge of the green, their flames leaping high into the darkening sky. The fires are meant to chase away the last of the winter's chill and to encourage the sun to shine brightly on the newly planted crops. A fiddler strikes up a lively tune, and the dancing begins. The young people, in their new clothes, take their places for the intricate, weaving patterns of the dances. They dance around the Beltane pole, the ribbons held in their hands, creating a beautiful, braided pattern on the wood as they move. The older folk watch from the sidelines, clapping in time with the music, their faces illuminated by the firelight, remembering the Beltanes of their own youth. The festival goes on late into the night, a joyous, defiant celebration of life, of community, and of the enduring promise that after every winter, no matter how long or how cold, the spring will always return. Following the joyful burst of spring, the year settles into the long, warm, and steady days of summer. If spring is a time of awakening and celebration, summer is a time of patient, steady work. It is the growing season, the time when the promises of Beltane must be nurtured and tended to. The sun rises early and sets late, stretching the working day to its maximum length. The mornings are often cool and misty, with a thick dew covering the fields and pastures. But by midday, the sun is high and hot, beating down on the land. The heat can be oppressive, shimmering in waves over the fields, making the distant hills seem to waver and dance. The air grows thick and heavy, filled with the buzzing of bees and the droning of flies. The sounds of summer are the lowing of cattle in the fields, the bleating of sheep on the hills, and the lazy chirping of crickets in the long grass. The work of summer is relentless but rewarding. The main focus of the farmers around Emond's is the tabac crop. Two Rivers tabac is renowned for its quality, and it is the region's primary source of income from the outside world. The broad green leaves of the tabac plants must be carefully tended throughout the summer months. The fields must be constantly weeded, a back-breaking task that is often done by the village children. Their small fingers adept at pulling the unwanted plants without harming the valuable crop. The plants must also be protected from pests, a constant battle fought with homemade remedies and keen observation. The men walk the rows of their fields every day, inspecting the leaves, their faces creased with concentration. A good tabac harvest means a comfortable winter. A bad one means a lean year ahead. Another major task of the summer is haying. The grasses in the meadows grow tall and thick under the summer sun, and before they go to seed, they must be cut and dried to provide fodder for the livestock during the winter. Haying is a communal effort. Families will often work together, moving from one farm's meadows to the next. The men swing their long, sharp scythes in a rhythmic, graceful motion, the steel blades whispering through the grass. The cut grass is then spread out to dry in the sun, and it must be turned regularly with wooden rakes to ensure it dries evenly. The smell of fresh-cut hay is one of the defining scents of a Two Rivers summer, a sweet, clean perfume that hangs in the air for weeks. Once the hay is dry, it is gathered into great stacks or hauled back to the barns, a golden treasure stored away against the coming cold. For the people of Devon Ride, the most important event of the summer is the sheep shearing. When the weather is reliably warm, the vast flocks are driven from the hills into specially constructed pens near the village. The shearing is a time of organized and noisy chaos. The air is filled with the constant, frantic bleating of the sheep and the sharp barking of the shepherd's dogs. The shearers are masters of their craft. With practiced ease, they can flip a struggling sheep onto its back and hold it steady with their legs. Their sharp shears move with incredible speed and precision, peeling the thick, oily fleece from the sheep in a single, continuous blanket. The shorn sheep, looking naked and bewildered, are then released back to the pastures while the heavy fleeces are gathered up. The women then take over, washing the wool in the streams to remove the dirt and grease before it is carded and spun into yarn. The wealth of Devon Ride can be measured by the great mounds of clean, white wool that pile up during the shearing season. But summer is not all work. The long evenings and the single day of rest each week provide opportunities for relaxation and community. On hot afternoons, the village children flock to the Winespring water, their joyous shouts echoing as they splash and swim in the cool, clear stream. The men and boys will often go fishing, sitting patiently on the riverbanks with their simple poles, hoping to catch a trout for supper. Sunday is a day of rest, and on fine summer Sundays, the village green in Amonsfield becomes the social hub for everyone. Families will bring blankets and baskets of food, spreading them out in the shade of the great oak trees for a picnic lunch. The men gather to talk of crops and weather, their pipes sending fragrant clouds of tabac smoke into the air. The women sit in their own groups, sharing news and gossip, their hands often busy with mending or knitting. The children play games of tag and hide and seek, their laughter the soundtrack of the afternoon. It is a time of simple pleasures, of strengthening the bonds of community in the warm, gentle light of the summer sun. Life slows down to the pace of the growing things, a steady, unhurried rhythm of work and rest, all under the watchful eye of the hot summer sky. As the long, hot days of summer begin to shorten, and a new crispness tinges the morning air, the season of autumn arrives. Autumn is the season of culmination, the time of the harvest. It is the busiest and most crucial time of the year, the period when the hard work of spring and summer finally comes to fruition. There is a sense of urgency in the air, a race against the coming winter. The light changes, taking on a golden, softer quality. The leaves on the trees in the westwood and the waterwood begin to turn, painting the landscape in brilliant shades of red, yellow, and orange. The nights grow longer and cooler, and the smell of wood smoke from the first evening fires begins to drift through the villages. The harvest is not a single event, but a series of demanding tasks that consume the lives of everyone in the Two Rivers. First comes the grain harvest. The fields of oats and barley, which have grown tall and golden through the summer, are now ready to be reaped. The men work from sunup to sundown, cutting the grain with sickles and scythes. The cut stalks are then bound into sheaves and stood up in the fields to dry. Once dry, the sheaves are brought to the threshing floor. a hard-packed area of earth or a wooden floor in a barn. Here, the grain is beaten with wooden flails to separate the edible kernels from the stalks and husks. It is dusty, repetitive work, but the sight of the growing pile of golden grain is a profound reward. The final step is winnowing, where the threshed grain is tossed into the air on a breezy day. The wind carries away the lighter chaff, while the heavier kernels of grain fall back to the waiting baskets. This grain is the stuff of life, the source of the bread and porridge that will sustain them through the winter. Next comes the apple harvest. The orchards around Emmonsfield are heavy with fruit, the branches of the trees bowed down with red and green apples. Everyone, including the children, takes part in the harvest. They climb ladders to reach the highest branches, their baskets filling quickly. The air is filled with the sweet, sharp scent of ripe apples. A portion of the harvest is set aside to be eaten fresh or stored in cool cellars for the winter. But the majority of the apples are taken to the cider press. The press is a large community-owned device and families take turns using it. The apples are crushed and the sweet juice is collected in barrels. Some of this will be enjoyed as fresh cider, a favourite treat of the harvest season, but most of it will be left to ferment into hard cider, a staple drink for the cold months ahead. The women are also busy in their kitchens, peeling and slicing apples to be dried or cooked down into thick, sweet apple butter. The final and most important harvest for the economy of the Two Rivers is the tabac harvest. The broad leaves, which have been so carefully tended all summer, are now ready. The men move through the fields, carefully cutting the entire stalk of each plant near the ground. These stalks are then taken to specially constructed curing barns. They are hung upside down from the rafters, and for several weeks they are left to slowly air dry. The curing process is a delicate art. The temperature and humidity in the barn must be carefully controlled to ensure the leaves cure to the perfect shade of rich brown and develop their signature sweet, mild flavour. The smell that emanates from the curing barns is a powerful and beloved scent in the Two Rivers, a rich, earthy aroma that signals the successful end of another year's primary labour. While the main harvests are underway, there are other, smaller gatherings to be done. The women and children go into the forests to gather nuts, filling sacks with walnuts and hazelnuts that will be cracked and eaten by the fire during the long winter nights. They also hunt for mushrooms in the damp, shady parts of the woods, their expert eyes distinguishing the delicious and edible varieties from the poisonous ones. The kitchen gardens are also stripped of their final bounty. Pumpkins, squash, and root vegetables like carrots and turnips are dug up and stored in cool, dark root cellars where they will keep for months. The work is endless, and by the end of the day, everyone is bone-weary. But it is a weariness born of accomplishment. As the barns fill with hay and grain, the cellars with vegetables, and the larders with preserved fruits and salted meats, a deep sense of security and satisfaction settles over the community. They have worked with the land, and the land has provided for them. They are ready for the winter. They have earned their rest. The final task is the woodcutting. The sound of axes echoes from the woods as the men fell trees and split logs, stacking the firewood high against the walls of their houses. A family's woodpile is a visible measure of their preparedness, a bulwark against the cold and dark. As the last of the harvest is brought in and the last log is stacked, the land begins to settle into a deep quiet, a final exhalation before the coming sleep of winter. And then winter comes. It arrives quietly, often in the night. The people wake one morning to a world transformed, a world of profound silence and brilliant white. The first heavy snowfall of the year muffles all sound, covering the land in a thick, soft blanket. The familiar landscape of fields and forests is rendered clean, simple, and new. The coming of the snow signals a fundamental shift in the rhythm of life. The focus of work moves from the outdoors to the indoors, from the expansive fields to the intimate space around the hearth. The world shrinks, becoming a smaller, cozier place centered on home and village. The days are short and the nights are long. The sun is a weak, distant presence in a grey sky, and its warmth offers little comfort against the biting wind. The primary task of each day is simply to stay warm. The fires that were lit only in the evenings during autumn now burn all day long, their warmth and light the centre of every home. The smell of burning oak and applewood is a constant presence, and a thin haze of smoke hangs over the villages, a sign of the life huddled within the stone and timber houses. Life slows to a walking pace. The frantic energy of the harvest is replaced by a sense of deliberate, patient industry. The men spend their days in their barns or in a warm corner of the kitchen. This is the time for mending and making. They repair the tools that were broken during the harvest, mend leather harnesses and carve new handles for axes and hammers. Many of the men are skilled woodcarvers, and they pass the long hours by carving spoons, bowls and toys for their children from blocks of wood. It is also the time to prepare for the next year's contests. They will carefully select staves of yew wood that have been seasoning for years, slowly and patiently shaping them into the powerful longbows for which the Two Rivers is famous. They fletch arrows, their hands steady and practiced, each arrow a small work of art. The women's work also moves indoors. The great piles of wool that were sheared and washed in the summer are now brought out. The days are filled with the hum of spinning wheels as the women spin the raw wool into strong, even thread. This thread is then taken to the looms, which dominate a room in almost every house. The rhythmic click-clack of the shuttle passing back and forth is the heartbeat of a winter home. The women weave the thread into the thick, warm woolen cloth that will be made into clothing for their families. It is also a time for quilting and mending, for making sure that every coat, every blanket, every pair of socks is whole and warm. The kitchens are filled with the comforting smells of slow-cooked stews, thick vegetable soups and baking bread, hearty meals designed to fight off the winter chill. While the work is important, winter is also a deeply social season. With the demands of the farm lessened, people have more time for each other. Families visit their neighbours, sharing a meal or simply passing an afternoon in conversation by the fire. The Winespring Inn becomes more important than ever, its common room crowded every night with men seeking company, a mug of hot spiced cider, and a game of darts or stones. It is a time for reinforcing the bonds of community, for sharing news and telling stories. And it is the stories that are the true heart of a Two Rivers winter. With the labour of the year done and the nights stretching out for what seems like an eternity, the people turn to their oldest and most cherished form of entertainment, storytelling. After the evening meal is finished and the dishes are cleared away, families will gather around the hearth. The firelight flickers, casting dancing shadows on the walls, and in the warm, intimate glow, an elder, a grandparent, or a parent will begin a story. Some stories are simple village tales, humorous anecdotes about the follies of a neighbour, or remembrances of famous events from the village's past, like the winter of the deep snow or the year of the great flood. These stories reinforce the shared history and identity of the community. Other stories are grander, tales learned from the gleemen who occasionally visit the Two Rivers. These are stories of adventure and magic, of brave knights and clever queens in distant lands with impossible names. They are stories of the great world beyond the rivers, a world that seems as fantastical and unreal as the tales themselves. But the most important stories are the oldest ones, the legends that have been passed down for so many generations that no one remembers where they first came from. These are the stories of the village's own deep past. They are told only on the coldest, darkest nights when the wind is howling outside and the family is gathered close. They are cautionary tales about the dangers of the mountains of mist or the strange sand hills to the south, and they are the great, half-remembered epics of their own ancestors. They tell of a time long ago when the people of this land were warriors when they lived in a great kingdom in the mountains. They tell of a brave king who led his armies to a great war against a terrible shadow, and of a wise and powerful queen who stayed behind to protect the homeland. They are stories of immense courage and heartbreaking sacrifice of a people who fought to the very last to defend their home. The people of the Two Rivers listen to these stories not as history, but as legends, as grand and unbelievable tales to pass the winter nights. They do not know that these stories are their own. They do not realize that the stubbornness in their own characters is the echo of that ancient courage. Winter, then, is the season of memory, the time when the people of the Two Rivers, without even knowing it, reconnect with the deepest roots of their past. It is a time of rest, of community, and of remembrance, the quiet, dreaming end of the great wheel of the year, before it begins its slow, inevitable turn back toward the promise of spring. Chapter 3. The People of the Blood. To truly know the Two Rivers, it is not enough to understand its geography or the turning of its seasons. You must understand the people themselves. They are a product of their isolated land, shaped by its peace and its demands, just as a river stone is shaped by the ceaseless flow of the water. On the surface, they are simple farmers and shepherds, their concerns limited to the weather and the price of wool. But beneath that simple surface lies a character of remarkable and unyielding strength, a core of iron that they themselves do not fully recognize. It is a strength born of the old blood, the forgotten legacy of Manetheren, and it manifests in every aspect of their lives, from a simple argument over a fence line to the way they govern themselves. The most famous, and often most frustrating, trait of a Two Rivers person is their stubbornness. It is a quality as deeply rooted in them as the ancient oaks on the village green. Outsiders, like the handful of merchants who visit each year, often mistake it for simple-mindedness or a deliberate attempt to be difficult, but it is neither. It is a profound and unshakable self-reliance, a deep-seated belief that their own experience and the traditions of their ancestors are more trustworthy than any new idea or pronouncement from the outside world. They have survived and prospered for 1,000 years by doing things a certain way, and they see no reason to change. This stubbornness is not a selective trait. It permeates everything. It is present in the grand decisions of the village council, and in the most trivial of domestic disagreements. It is the bedrock of their character. Imagine a market day on the Airman's Field Green. A merchant from Baerlon, a man accustomed to quick wits and quicker bargains, has set up his stall displaying bolts of brightly coloured cloth and small, intricate tools. He is trying to buy wool from a farmer named Ewan Copeland, a man whose face is a roadmap of wrinkles from decades of squinting into the sun. The merchant has offered a fair price, a price that would be accepted without question in any other town. But Ewan Copeland simply shakes his head, his lips a thin, firm line. The merchant increases his offer, his voice taking on a wheedling tone. Ewan does not budge, he does not argue, or raise his voice. He simply stands there, his arms crossed over his chest, the very picture of immovable object. The merchant, growing exasperated, asks what price he wants. Ewan names a figure just a few coppers higher than the merchant's best offer. The merchant scoffs, explaining the economics of transport, the cost of the ferry, the Queen's taxes. He explains that at Ewan's price, he would make no profit at all. Ewan Copeland listens to all of this with polite patience, and when the merchant has finished his long and detailed explanation, Ewan simply says, "That's my price." There is no malice in his voice, no greed. It is a simple statement of fact. He knows what his wool is worth. He knows the labor that went into shearing the sheep, washing the fleece, and carding it. He has decided on its value, and the opinions of the outside world are of no consequence to him. In the end, the merchant, knowing that Two Rivers wool is the finest he can get, will sigh in defeat and pay the price. And Ewan Copeland will accept the coins without a word of triumph, because in his mind it was never a contest. It was simply a matter of waiting for the other person to see sense. This same unbending will can be seen in the kitchens and gardens of the village. Two women, old friends, who have lived next to each other their entire lives, might fall into a week-long disagreement over the proper way to make honey cakes for the Beltane festival. One insists that the honey must be added to the flour while it is warm. The other is equally adamant that the honey must be allowed to cool completely, as her grandmother and her grandmother's grandmother had always done. They will debate the matter with the seriousness of generals planning a campaign. They will bring forth evidence from past festivals, citing the texture of honey cakes from years gone by. They will not speak to each other for days, communicating only through their long-suffering husbands. The entire village will be aware of the great honey cake dispute, and in the end, there will be no compromise. On the day of the festival, there will be 2 plates of honey cakes on the feast tables, each made according to a different, unyielding tradition, and everyone will agree that both are delicious, but the 2 women will each remain privately convinced that theirs is the superior cake. For a Two Rivers person, being right is often more important than being at peace. This trait can also be a source of great strength. Consider a community project, such as the mending of the old bridge over the Winespring water after the spring floods have damaged one of its stone supports. The village council will decree that the work must be done, but getting the men of the village to agree on how to do it is another matter entirely. One man whose father was a stonemason will insist that the only proper way is to divert the stream and build a new foundation from the bedrock up. Another, a woodsman, will argue that a carefully placed series of timber supports would be quicker and just as strong. A third will have his own unique theory involving levers and ropes. They will argue for hours on the riverbank, each man utterly convinced of the correctness of his own method. They will draw diagrams in the mud with sticks. They will point and gesticulate and raise their voices. An outsider might see this as chaos, as a village incapable of working together. But they would be wrong. For once a decision is finally reached, hammered out through sheer exhaustion and the eventual grudging consensus of the majority, the work will begin with a unity and determination that is breathtaking. Every man will put his shoulder to the task, working together seamlessly. Their stubbornness, once a source of conflict, transforms into a shared, resolute will. They will not stop until the bridge is not just repaired, but stronger than it was before. Their stubbornness is their shield against the easy and the shoddy. It is a guarantee that anything they do, they will do to the very best of their ability, and they will do it their way. They are a people who do not bend, not to the arguments of merchants, not to the opinions of their neighbors, and not to the forces of nature itself. The governance of the Two Rivers is a perfect reflection of this stubborn and independent character. The land is officially ruled by the Queen in the distant capital of Camelin, but her influence here is so faint as to be non-existent. The people govern themselves through 2 distinct and sometimes competing pillars of authority, the village council and the women's circle. The village council is the formal public face of authority in each village. In Emansfield, the council is composed of the mayor, who is traditionally the innkeeper of the Winespring Inn, and a small group of the most respected men in the village. They are the farmers with the largest land holdings, the blacksmith, the miller, and a few others whose age and wisdom have earned them a voice. The council meets on the green in the shade of the great oak whenever there is a matter that affects the entire community. Their proceedings are a masterclass in deliberation and debate. An issue is raised, perhaps the need to set a date for the start of the harvest, or a dispute between two farmers over a wandering cow. The mayor will state the problem, and then the floor is open for discussion. And what a discussion it is! Every member of the council feels not just the right but the duty to voice his opinion at length. Senbi, the oldest man on the council, will invariably begin by complaining. He will complain about the youth of today, about the quality of the last Taba harvest, and about how things were done much better in his day. He is the voice of tradition, resistant to any form of change, no matter how small. Harald Luhan, the blacksmith, will say little. But when he does speak, his words are practical and to the point, focused on the physical realities of the problem. Tam al-Thor, a quiet farmer known for his thoughtful nature, will often wait until everyone else has had their say before offering a calm, sensible perspective that cuts through the noise. The other members will all chime in, each with his own deeply held conviction. The debate can go on for hours, circling the issue like wolves around a campfire. They will argue over every detail, no matter how minor. To an outsider, it would seem that nothing can ever be decided, but this slow, contentious process serves a purpose. It ensures that every possible angle of a problem is examined. It guarantees that no decision is made in haste. And when a consensus is finally painstakingly reached, it is a decision that the entire village will stand behind, because every viewpoint has been heard and considered. The village council is the embodiment of the two rivers' male character: slow, deliberate, stubborn, and ultimately practical. They are the sturdy, visible framework of the village's order. But if the village council is the framework, the women's circle is the heart and the nervous system. The circle is not a formal body. It has no scheduled meetings and no official roster of members. It is a network, an intricate web of relationships and influence that binds the women of the village together. At its center is the village wisdom, a woman chosen for her knowledge of herbs and healing, her keen understanding of human nature, and her unwavering common sense. The wisdom is the healer, the midwife, the counselor, and in many ways the true leader of the community. When a child falls sick with a fever, it is the wisdom the parents send for, not the men of the council. She will arrive with her bag of dried herbs and roots, her presence alone a source of calm and reassurance. She will brew teas and prepare poultices, her knowledge passed down through an unbroken line of wisdoms stretching back for centuries. Her authority in matters of health and well-being is absolute, but the role of the women's circle extends far beyond healing. They are the keepers of the village's social harmony. While the men on the council argue about bridges and harvests, the women of the circle deal with the more delicate and complex problems of people living in close quarters. It is the wisdom who will be called upon to settle a dispute between two families that has grown too bitter for the council to handle. Imagine that stray chicken and the prize-winning cabbages. The men of the council might argue for weeks about the monetary value of the cabbages and the legal ownership of the chicken. The wisdom will handle it differently. She will visit each of the feuding women in their homes. She will listen not just to their words, but to the anger and hurt beneath them. She will drink tea with them. And then she will deliver her judgment. It will be a judgment not of law, but of fairness and community. Perhaps the owner of the chicken will be required to give the owner of the cabbages, a dozen of her best eggs and a freshly baked loaf of bread, and the owner of the cabbages will be required to share the recipe for her prize-winning cabbage soup. The matter will be settled not with fines or punishments, but with a restoration of neighbourly goodwill. Her decision is never questioned. To go against the wisdom's judgment is to risk the disapproval of the entire women's circle, a form of social isolation that no one in the village can bear. The women's circle is also the village's primary information network. News whispered over a garden fence from one woman to another will spread through the entire village with more speed and accuracy than any official proclamation from the mayor. They know who is courting whom, who is expecting a child, who is struggling to make ends meet, and who needs a quiet word of support. They are the unseen hands that weave the social fabric of the two rivers, mending tears before they can become great rents. The young women of the village aspire to be accepted into the circle, and they learn by watching their mothers and the other women absorbing the unwritten rules of their society. While the men of the council may believe they are in charge, it is often the quiet, collective will of the women's circle that truly guides the destiny of the village. The two powers exist in a delicate balance, a reflection of the two rivers' character itself, the stubborn, outspoken practicality of the men, and the wise, intuitive, and unyielding strength of the women. This quiet, hidden strength of the people is also evident in the tools they carry and the skills they have mastered. The Two Rivers is a land of profound peace. It has not known war in 1,000 years. The people see themselves as farmers, not fighters. Yet in their hands, the simple tools of their trade become expressions of a forgotten martial heritage. They have mastered two implements to a degree that would astound the soldiers of other lands, the longbow and the quarterstaff. The Two Rivers longbow is not merely a tool for hunting, it is a work of art and a symbol of their culture. The creation of a bow is a long and patient process, a tradition passed from father to son. It begins with a journey into the westward. A man will search for days to find the perfect yew tree. It must be a tree that has grown slowly in a shady spot, its wood dense and straight-grained. He will take only what he needs, a single, straight stave from the trunk, and he will do so with a respect for the forest that is almost religious. This stave is then brought back to the village where it must be seasoned. It is stored in a dry, cool shed away from the sun and the rain. For years, sometimes as many as 7 or 10, the wood is left to slowly cure, its internal stresses evening out, its strength and flexibility reaching their peak. This patience is a hallmark of the Two Rivers' character. They are never in a hurry. They know that true quality takes time. When the wood is finally ready, the bowyer's work begins. It is a slow, careful process of shaping. Using a small, sharp draw knife, the bowyer begins to remove thin shavings of wood. He follows the grain of the wood exactly, never cutting across it. The bow must have a flat back of pale sapwood, which is strong in tension, and a rounded belly of dark heartwood, which is strong in compression. The genius of the longbow lies in this perfect marriage of the two types of wood. The bowyer works by feel as much as by sight, his hands learning the character of this specific piece of wood. The most critical part of the process is tillering, the act of teaching the bow to bend. The bow is placed on a tiller, a wooden frame, and the string is drawn back a little at a time. The bowyer watches the curve of the limbs. They must bend in a perfect, even arc. If one part of a limb is too stiff, he will carefully scrape away a few more shavings of wood. If a part is too weak, he has ruined the stave and must begin again. He repeats this process hundreds of times, his patience seemingly endless, until the bow bends in a perfect, powerful curve. The finished product is a thing of simple beauty and deadly efficiency. It is as tall as a man, its wood polished to a soft sheen. The bowstring is made of twisted linen waxed against the damp. In the hands of a Two Rivers man, this bow is a formidable weapon. They practice from the time they are old enough to hold a smaller, child-sized bow. They do not practice for war, they practice for hunting, where a single, clean shot is a matter of pride. And they practice for the Beltane archery competition, which is the most prestigious contest of the year. On the day of the festival, the men will line up, their faces set in concentration, and Eamon's fielder will not be content to simply hit the target. He aims for the small clay disc at the very center of the target, the bullseye. The crowd falls silent as an archer draws his bow. The muscles in his back and shoulders bunch as he pulls the string back to his ear, the 60 or 70 pounds of draw weight held with steady ease. He will hold the aim for a moment, his eye sighting down the length of the long, grey-feathered arrow. And then he will release. There is a sharp, deep thrum from the bowstring, a sound of immense power, followed an instant later by the satisfying crack as the arrow shatters the clay disc 100 paces away. They do this with a consistency that would be the envy of any professional army. But if you were to call them soldiers, they would laugh. They are just farmers who are good with a bow. The other signature implement of the Two Rivers is the quarterstaff. Every shepherd carries one, a stout staff of oak or ash, about 6 feet in length. Its primary purpose is practical. It is a tool for guiding sheep, for testing the depth of a stream, or for leaning on during a long watch on the hillsides. But it is also something more. In the evenings on the village green, the young men will often practice with the staffs. To an outsider, it might look like they are fighting. The staffs move in a blur, whirling and spinning, the sound of wood, striking wood, echoing in the twilight. But it is not a fight. It is a game, a form of dance. They call it playing at staves. The movements are intricate and require incredible speed, coordination and footwork. A young man will use his staff to block an imaginary blow from above, then spin and deliver a low sweep, all in a single, fluid motion. When two of them practice together, it is a dazzling display. The staffs become extensions of their bodies, a constant whirlwind of motion, a dance of attack and defense. There are feints, blocks and strikes, but the blows are always pulled at the last second, or they land with a controlled tap rather than a full-force impact. It is a contest of skill, not of brute force. The goal is not to injure your opponent, but to surprise them, to find an opening in their defense, to demonstrate your superior speed and control. The older men will watch from the side, offering advice and criticism. This constant practice, treated as a mere pastime, hones their reflexes and their spatial awareness to a razor's edge. Like their skill with the longbow, this mastery of the quarterstaff is a deeply ingrained part of their culture, a martial art hidden within a peaceful game. They are shepherds and farmers, but they move with the practiced grace of warriors, and so we see the true nature of the people of the blood. They are a paradox. They are peaceful, yet they are masters of weapons. They are simple, yet their social structures are complex and effective. They are isolated, yet they possess a resilience that would allow them to survive in any environment. Their greatest trait, their stubbornness, is both their most frustrating quality and the source of their greatest strength. It makes them slow to change and suspicious of new ideas, but it also makes them unshakable in their convictions and unstoppable when they set their minds to a task. They are like the yew wood from which they craft their bows, possessing a quiet, unassuming exterior that hides a core of incredible strength and flexibility. They are a people who have forgotten their own history. They do not know that they are the descendants of the heroes of Manetheren. They do not know that the blood of kings and queens flows in their veins. They see themselves only as the people of the Two Rivers, a small folk in a small corner of the world. But the old blood remembers. It remembers in their unbending will, in the wisdom of their women's circle, in the keenness of their eye, and in the speed of their hand. They are a quiet people, living a quiet life. But they are a people of iron, waiting for the fire that will forge them into steel. Chapter 4. An echo in the heart, the tale of Manetheren. The deep winter has taken the two rivers and holds it in a firm, cold grasp. The world outside the warm, sturdy houses is a place of profound stillness, a landscape painted in just two colours, the brilliant stark white of the snow and the deep, inky black of the shadows. The snow lies in thick, heavy drifts, burying fences, smoothing the hard edges of the land, and rising high against the walls of the houses. The air is so cold that it feels sharp in the lungs, and the silence is a physical presence, broken only by the mournful cry of the wind as it sweeps down from the mountains of mist. This is the heart of winter, the season of the long dark, a time when the world shrinks to the size of a single room, a single fire. On a night such as this, there is no better place to be than the common room of the Winespring Inn. It is a refuge of warmth and light against the vast frozen darkness outside. The room is large, with a low ceiling supported by massive dark wooden beams. The air inside is thick and warm, a rich tapestry of smells. The sharp, clean scent of the pine logs crackling in the hearth, the savoury aroma of a mutton stew simmering in a great black pot over the flames, the sweet and earthy smell of Two Rivers tabac smoke, and the faint, yeasty tang of spilled ale soaked into the wooden floorboards. The heart of the room, and the heart of the entire village on this night, is the fireplace. It is a cavernous thing, built of river stone, large enough for a grown man to stand upright in. Tonight, a log as thick as a man's waist burns within it, its flames a roaring, vibrant dance of orange and red and yellow. The fire throws a lively, flickering light across the room, making the shadows in the corners leap and sway like dancers. It is a light that is alive, a light that pushes back the oppressive, all-consuming dark of the winter night. The room is full. It seems as if half of Emmonsfield has sought shelter and company here. The men of the village, their faces ruddy from the cold, are gathered at the heavy wooden tables. Some play at a game of stones, the smooth, polished river rocks clicking softly as they are moved across the board. Others are engaged in quiet conversation, their voices a low, pleasant murmur that provides a steady background hum to the room. Young men, full of the restless energy of their age, are gathered near the bar, laughing loudly and trading boasts. Older farmers sit closer to the fire, their chairs tilted back, their pipes glowing like fireflies in the dim light, their talk of sheep and fences and the prospects for the spring thaw. The women are here too, a rare occurrence on a normal night, but the severity of the cold has driven everyone from their own hearths to this larger, warmer one. They sit in their own groups, their knitting needles clicking softly, their conversation a counterpoint to the men's gruff talk. Bran Alvear, the mayor and innkeeper, moves through the room, a stout, reassuring presence, refilling mugs of ale and spiced cider. His cheerful greetings are part of the room's warm atmosphere. The wind outside gives a particularly vicious howl, rattling the thick wooden shutters on the windows. A hush falls over the room for a moment as everyone listens. The sound is a reminder of their shared vulnerability, of the wild, untamed world that lies just beyond the walls. It is a sound that makes them draw closer to the fire, closer to each other. It is on nights like this, when the present world is held at bay by a wall of snow and wind, that the mind turns to the past. It is a night for stories. A young boy, no more than 10 years old, his eyes wide in the firelight, turns to his father. "Tell us a story," he says, his voice cutting through the resumed murmur of the room. "A real story, an old one." The father, a young farmer named Will, laughs. "I'm no storyteller, lad. I can tell you about the time old 10 Boys prize pig got loose and ate all of Mistress Alvere's prize-winning roses, but that's about the extent of it." A few of the men chuckle at the memory, but the boy is not satisfied. He looks around the room, his gaze falling on a man sitting quietly by himself, a little apart from the others, his eyes fixed on the dancing flames. The man is Tam al-Thor. He is not a member of the village council, nor does he have the largest farm, but he is a man who commands a quiet respect. There is a steadiness about him, a thoughtfulness in his grey eyes. He is a man who has seen more of the world than most in the Two Rivers, having served in the army of a foreign land in his youth, though he never speaks of it. And he is known as one of the best storytellers in the village. "Master Althor," the boy says, his voice now a little shy, "you tell us a story, a proper one, about the old times." Other heads turn towards Tam. The request is echoed by others. "Aye, Tam," says Harald Luhan, the blacksmith, his deep voice a rumble. "It's a night for it. Give us an old one, a long one." Tam Althor slowly pulls his gaze from the fire. He looks at the boy and then at the other expectant faces turned towards him. A small, slow smile touches his lips. He takes a long drink from his mug of cider, the warmth of it seeming to fortify him. He sets the mug down on the floor beside his chair with a soft thud. He leans forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. The room grows quiet. The only sounds are the crackling of the fire and the lonely howl of the wind. Everyone leans in, their attention captured. Tam does not begin with a grand pronouncement. He begins softly, his voice just a little louder than the fire, drawing his listeners in. "There are stories," he begins, his voice slow and deliberate. "And then there are stories. Some are for laughing and some are for learning. And some are for remembering. You want an old story, I will tell you the oldest one I know. It's a story that comes not from a gleeman's book of tales, but from our own blood. It's a story that most of the world has forgotten. Even we have forgotten most of it. But pieces of it remain. They are like the stones of a ruined house, buried in a field. You can't see the house anymore, but you know it was there because of the stones you find in the soil. This is a story about the stones in our soil." He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle in the quiet room. He looks back into the fire as if the story itself is written in the flames. "They say," he continues, his voice taking on a rhythmic, timeless quality, "that our ancestors did not always live in this quiet land between the two rivers. They say we came from somewhere else, a long, long time ago, a time so long ago that the shape of the land itself was different. We came from the mountains, the very mountains of mist that you see on the horizon every day. They were not just a landmark to our ancestors, they were our home. They say we had a kingdom there, a kingdom of stone and courage. It did not have a name that anyone remembers now. The story just calls it the mountain home. The mountain home was not like our villages here. It was a great city, built of white stone that shone in the sun. It was carved into the side of a mountain, its towers and battlements reaching for the sky. It was a strong place, a place of pride. The people who lived there were strong too. They were fierce and proud, quick to laugh and quick to anger. They loved music and dancing and bright colours, but they were hard too, like the stone of their mountain home. They were warriors, every man and woman. They had to be, because the world in those days was a much more dangerous place. The kingdom was ruled by a king and a queen. The story gives them names. The king was named Eamon. He was a great warrior, the greatest of his age. They say he was as strong as an oak and as quick as a mountain cat. He carried a sword that was made in a time of legends, and when he led his armies to battle, they were never defeated. But he was more than just a warrior. He loved his people, and he ruled with a fair and just hand. The queen was named Eldrine. She was as wise as he was strong, and as beautiful as the first flower of spring. But her beauty was the least of her gifts. She had a power within her, a power that the old stories say came from the earth itself. She could make things grow, and she could heal the sick. And she could see things that were happening far away or things that were yet to come. She was the heart of the kingdom, and Aemon was its sword arm. Together they were the foundation of the mountain home. For many years they lived in peace and prosperity. Their kingdom was strong, their people were happy. But in the world beyond their mountains, a shadow was growing. It was a darkness that consumed everything it touched. An army of nightmares came out of the north, a tide of twisted creatures, half man and half beast, with blades of black iron and eyes that glowed with a malevolent fire. They were led by terrible, shadowy generals who rode on black horses and whose very presence could freeze the courage in a man's heart. This dark army swept across the lands, burning cities and slaughtering all who stood in their way. The kingdoms of the world were falling one by one. A call for help went out, a desperate plea for all free people to unite and stand against the shadow before the whole world was swallowed by it. The call reached the mountain home. A council was held in the great stone hall of the king. The king, Aemon, stood before his captains and his lords. He told them of the darkness that was consuming the world. He told them that if they did not march to help their neighbors, the shadow would soon come for them, and they would have to face it alone. Some of his lords were cautious. They argued that the mountain home was strong, that its mountain passes were easily defended. They said they should keep their army at home to protect their own families. It was a sensible argument, a safe argument. Tam paused and looked around the room. "You know what it is like when the men of the council debate here on the green," he said, a faint smile on his lips. "You can imagine how it was then, with the fate of the world at stake." The arguments went on for a day and a night, but in the end King Aemon stood up. And they say his voice was like the sound of a rock slide, powerful and undeniable. He said, "We are the people of the mountain home. Our word is our bond. We have sworn oaths of alliance with the kingdoms of the plains. If a man's neighbor's house is on fire, does he bar his own door and hope the flames do not spread, or does he pick up a bucket and help to fight the fire? The fire is spreading. We will go and fight it, for if we do not, even our stone city will burn in the end." And with those words, the debate was over. The people of the mountain home would march to war. The mustering of the army took weeks. The forges of the city glowed day and night as the blacksmiths hammered out swords and spearheads. The fletchers made arrows until their fingers were raw. The women wove banners of bright red, the color of the mountain sunset, with the sigil of the kingdom in the center, a great, soaring eagle. When the day came for the army to march, the entire city turned out to see them go. The soldiers marched through the great stone gates, their armor gleaming, their red banners snapping in the wind. King Aemon rode at their head, his eye